What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Jumping on here to recap big time Steelers win on the road in Foxborough against the New England Patriots. Moved to 2-1. Definitely felt good to get this one. It was one of the more bizarre games that I can really remember watching, and I say that as someone who watches the Steelers on a weekly basis. Full of heart attacks with this group. I feel like really year in, year out. But this was a strange one. Forcing 5 turnovers is pretty awesome. The defense has, faced a lot of criticism over the first 2 weeks of the season. I would say that pretty much all of that criticism is deserved just based on how they've played far below their potential, allowing 30 plus points in the first 2 games of the year. And then to come back, I felt like they played pretty solid today. And really, I felt like carried them to a victory with the offense looking for the most part pretty lifeless in this one. But as always, kind of want to get into the good, the bad, some things I want to like go back and check the film on and see what was going on with. But again, just some shooting from the hip, just trying to get my takes off with this game. But before we get started, please make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, drop me a comment, let me know what you thought of the game. All that stuff is greatly appreciated on my end. I think the big thing was the Steelers front in this one just completely dominated. We talked about that they had a huge talent advantage in this one against the Patriots offensive line that was featuring 2 rookies on the left side. They got an aging right tackle, a pretty solid right guard, a center who I think like everybody in Minnesota was kind of ready to move on from. So even though this offensive line is better than what the Pats were throwing out there last year, still significantly worse from a talent perspective than the Steelers. And I just thought that, their key players, they all played up to their potential today. Starting with Cam Hayward, Cam's unique kind of uncanny ability to get his hands in the passing lanes is one of the truly like niche skill sets that I think is just incredibly valuable in today's NFL with all these like quick game passes with the ball coming out in under 2.5 seconds and all that stuff. I think it was the first week he had a batted pass. If he doesn't get his hands on it, it probably goes for an explosive play. It might score. Second week, obviously, he gets that batted pass. Nick Herbig gets an interception. And then this week, he gets the batted pass on a 17-play drive that ends up in no points. As an offense, if you have the ball for that long a period of time and then you come away scoreless heading into the half, man, that's just like a demoralizing thing for a unit. But Cam, I know he rubbed a lot of people the wrong way with all the contract stuff this offseason. It is what it is. But performances like this are pretty awesome to see, especially for a 36-year-old who's accomplished a lot in his career, continues to get it done. I thought they hit a really nice game. Nick Herbig, talked about the preview. I just thought that he was going to be in for a monster game, and he really, really delivered, to say the least, in this one. I think he led the team with 8 pressures. Some of the numbers, like the PFF stuff, they do their like in-game charting, but then they go back and like rewatch the game. So some of these numbers could change, but it does like match the eye test of what we saw. Led the team with 8 pressures. Of course, he had the strip sack as well. You look at True Pass sets he had a 33.3 win percentage against Will Campbell. I just thought that there were stretches in this game where he was basically getting home at will, on the rookie. So that's what I expect him to do. But it is like nice. It's a luxury that the Steelers have that I just think that really, very few I can think of, like maybe like Seattle. There's just not really that many teams in the NFL, even teams with good defenses that can roll 3-4 deep on the edge and have like 3 legitimately plus starters in Highsmith, Watt, and Herbig when all those guys are healthy. So, Nick continues to make plays every time he gets an opportunity to get significant playing time. I feel like he makes the most of it. And yeah, he's going to be in for like a massive payday next offseason. If it's not from the Steelers, there will be other teams, I'm sure, like calling about him. But he's a heck of a player, man, from a pass rushing perspective. And then TJ Watt, we talked about, just him needing to make some splash plays, pretty quiet first 2 games of the season. Everybody talking about 6 straight games without a sack. This one, he gets that sack early in the game, beats Morgan Moses to his spot, ends up bending up the arc, brings down Drake May. The second one was really more of like a kind of a coverage sack / like Herbig kind of forcing the pressure into him. But that type of production, 2 sacks, that's kind of what we're used to from him. So it was nice to see him come away with a big game today as well. So those were kind of the overwhelming positives on the defensive side of the ball. I also think that you have to point out just some of the new guys coming in and playing like at a really high level. Jabril Peppers, we Talked about him getting some PT on defense. Comes in with a huge forced fumble and a recovery on the same exact play against his old team. I thought it was pretty cool, seeing some of the Pittsburgh media folks coming out and saying that the Steelers gave him a game ball after today's game. I just think that stuff like that is, you know, players hold grudges. They play with, chips on their shoulders and stuff. And I just feel really good for Jabril that he was able to get a win and then play really well in the process. So I'm excited to go back and watch his film. But he finished with 3 stops. Cole Holcomb also started the day at inside linebacker across from Patrick Queen. He finished with 3 stops, and he was one of the guys that forced the very first Ramondre Stevenson fumble. So I think those 2 guys coming in and making splash plays. And then to my knowledge, I don't really think that there was any like significantly bad plays that I recall on tape either. I know Holcomb got beat on a play action kind of over route to Hunter Henry, but nothing like too bad that stands out. So those guys, came in, played steady, but also made splash plays. That's pretty awesome and a testament to, you never know when you're going to get your opportunity as depth guys. I mean, those guys, 29, 30-year-old vets that have been around the league, they've started a lot of games. I think that just speaks to, the depth that they've accumulated on this roster. They've got a lot of guys that have played good ball in the past. It's just about getting everybody to gel. And, I'll continue to say that I think that this defense is much better than what they've put on display so far this season, and hopefully something that, continues to trend in the upward trajectory. I would say, just sticking with the defensive side of the ball before we kind of talk about the offense, I think the big thing from a defensive perspective is like they just did not feel like they defended the middle of the field very well. And then I don't think they really were fully prepared for Drake May's legs either. I mean, May was the Pats' leading rusher, so it was good to see the Steelers pretty much bottled up the run game stuff, in addition to forcing all of those fumbles. Antonio Gibson had 1, Stevenson had 2. You look at some of the numbers, Gibson finishes with 7 carries, 28 yards. Henderson finishes with 11 carries, 28 yards. And then Stevenson had, I think, 4 for 18 before he was ultimately benched in this one. But, May got loose a couple times with some scrambles. I thought that was, just not accounting for his ability to kind of go into creation mode, and then also just like defending the middle of the field. It just felt like anything that he wanted between the numbers was on the table today. Looked up some numbers and they kind of backed that stuff up. May finished 14 of 17 for 152 yards and a touchdown on throws in between the numbers. It looked like it was a myriad of different things. Some of it was zone. Some of it looked like their cover 3 buzz stuff where like Thornhill or the safety was kind of late rotating down to the hook curl. They didn't have any answer for Hunter Henry in this one. He beat Patrick Queen a couple times in man coverage. He ended up producing several big plays. And then you look at some of the third down numbers, it kind of reminded me a little bit of some of the third down struggles they had last week, where it's like you look at the numbers and it's not like atrocious. It's more about like how those numbers happened. They were 6 for 13. So, I mean, it's not good defensively, but it's not the worst thing in the world, right? But then you factor in that the Pats also had, they also went 4 for 5 on 4th down. So a lot of those third down conversions were getting them into situations where it was like 4th and 1 where you could sneak it or run some type of play to be able to kind of elongate the drive. So not getting off the field well enough, aside from the turnovers. I felt like that, prohibited from the offense from possessing the football very much, in addition to their own struggles, just not being able to move the ball when they got those opportunities. But those would be the things that I would kind of look at in terms of, things to kind of clean up. I want to go back and kind of look at the film, but, the Pats didn't have a lot of weapons coming into this one. And it's definitely something that I, it was tough to kind of see the tight ends kind of run wild on this one over the middle of the field. So I'm going to have to go back and look at the film. But overall, I thought the defense played fairly well, all things considered. A nice bounce back game. Still a lot of room for improvement, but trending in the right direction, hopefully, as they go to London next week against the Vikings. Now, offensively, totally different story, man. I don't really know where to start with this. I mean, for me, the biggest takeaway is the Steelers are still not winning up front in the trenches, in my opinion. I think it is more of an issue like in the run game. Like you look at some of the yards before contact stuff. Jalen Warren ended up with more yards after contact again today than before contact. This felt like way too many free runners in the backfield. Guys like unabated defenders, Broderick Jones, they're trying to run zone to his side. He gets kind of deked out. The edge rusher slips inside, makes a tackle on on Warren. Thought the opening drive execution looked really good. I thought the interior, in particular, Zach Frazier and Isaac Seumalo, were really moving people off the ball on that first drive. And then pretty much after that, everything just seemed to stall out. It was a lot of moving laterally, not really getting too much push. And like I said, the backs just getting hit in the backfield or having to create for themselves just way too often. The numbers on themselves don't look that bad, but they just didn't have the ball a ton. And some of that came down to, not being able to convert critical down and distance situations. They were 3 for 3 in the red zone in this one. I thought that was something that was worthy pointing out. If you could, the Steelers offense is not glamorous to watch by any stretch of the imagination, but they have converted in their 2 wins this season. They've been really good in the red zone, which is something worth talking about. I think the sustainability of this offense is definitely something that worries me a lot, if I'm being honest with you. This feels very like 2021 Big Ben Steelers-ish offense. And what I mean by that is like you have a quarterback who really can't move anymore, and then a lot of passes thrown short of the sticks, in particular behind the line of scrimmage. Now, in this game, some of that worked because the Pats missed 14 more tackles. We talked about the fact that they had missed 25 tackles in the first 2 games of the season. They missed 14, I think, according to Next Gen in this one. So that is good. Jalen Warren made some nice plays. I think that the go-ahead touchdown toss to Calvin Austin kind of to set that thing up. They were backed up. I think it was like 2nd 15 maybe. Warren takes a little check down and ends up getting them into a manageable 3rd goal situation where they're able to hit Austin for the touchdown. But I think it's good that they've been pretty good after the catch. DK had the one on the opening drive to set them up. It was like 15 yards or something like that. But just the lack of vertical passing game, this offense just feels really limited. In addition to not really being able to like run the ball the way that they really want to consistently, but the passing game just feels really limited. It just feels like a lot of screens, stuff to the flats, check downs behind the line of scrimmage, and then like the occasional go ball. And I just don't know how far that's going to get you when you're not playing teams like the Jets, the Patriots, teams that I don't think people are really anticipating playing come January. So we'll see how that transpires throughout the season. I think some of that is like the offensive line and pass protection. I don't even think necessarily was bad today. I just don't think that Rodgers really trusts what's in front of him. Like I said, it's a lot of like quick dump offs or just kind of chucking the ball down the field. The interception over the middle of the field was just like, this is the 2nd straight week he's thrown the ball right to a defender that's like just sitting in a zone window. That's concerning. But I thought the pass to Austin was a nice pass in the 4th quarter, and then the fade that he threw to DK was a beautiful ball, like over his shoulder. DK is one of those guys that's always like been like more comfortable catching the ball over his shoulder than like asking him to come back and work through contact or high point the ball. He just doesn't have like the body control like that, but he can really track it over his shoulder, which is kind of unique for a guy his size. But DK still doesn't have, I don't even know if he has a reception. His longest reception this year is like 15 yards or something like that in the air. So still struggling to generate explosives downfield. I can't imagine that I would wonder if I'll have to go look at this, if he's ever went 3 games in a row without like a long reception through the air. That'll be a research project I'll have through this week. But be interested to go back, look at the tape, see if there are missed opportunities down the field, or maybe the receivers were getting gloved up, or we'll see what happens with that. But this Patriots defense, not super talented. So the fact that they couldn't, find a way to put up more than 21 points with 5 turnovers given to them, a couple of those in really good field position, is definitely disappointing. But a win is a win nonetheless. Mike Tomlin's record in these like 1-score games has been pretty unbelievable over the past several years, and it's a big reason why the Steelers continue to be able to play meaningful ball, and like they're in the playoff hunt come early January every single year, and it's because they find ways to come out of things on top, especially against like teams that are less experienced like the Patriots and things like that. But overall, I think that there's some good, some bad. We'll have to go back, look at the film to kind of see all of what transpired. I'm trying to think if there was anything else that I kind of wanted to talk about a little bit. I think that was pretty much everything. Again, I appreciate your all's continued support on the channel. I will have a bunch of content for you guys coming this week. Just a quick reminder, if you guys are interested in even more content from me, be sure to sign up for the membership. It's $4 a month. get even more content, exclusive perks, all that stuff. If not, I will have plenty of stuff for you guys on the public side as well. Hopefully, I'll be able to, get the film early this week and try to have something up for you guys by tomorrow night. That's my goal, but we'll see what happens. A lot of good games today. Just an insane kind of witching hour of like blocked field goals. I don't think I've ever seen so many blocked field goals in my life. But it's been a nice surprise of a day. So I'm interested to see, how these night games transpire. But as always, I will talk to you guys very soon. Peace and love.